When the letter reached Donald Trump on a gray Monday morning, it was one of many. Most received kind replies, signed photos, thoughtful notes. But something about Noah's quiet courage stopped him. He read it twice. Then he looked up at his staff. "Clear the schedule for Friday," he said. "We're visiting a hospital." The announcement stunned Starlight Children's Hospital. The visit would be private. No press, no speeches, no politics. Just the president and the kids. Danielle Carter, Noah's mother, was folding laundry in the small apartment she'd barely slept in since her son's diagnosis when her phone rang. The nurse's voice trembled. "The president is coming to see Noah." Danielle sat down hard on the couch. Across the room, Noah slept, his body thinner than it should be, his hair long gone, but his face peaceful. She brushed a hand across his forehead. "You're going to meet him, baby," she whispered. "Just like you wanted." Friday arrived wrapped in nervous excitement. Nurses fluffed pillows. Doctors reviewed charts. Children peeked from doorways, whispering guesses about what the president might be like. In room 207, Noah adjusted the faded superhero pin on his cap. His roommate Mia, 8 years old and endlessly curious despite her own lung condition, grinned at him. "What are you going to say?" she asked. Noah looked out the window. "I just want to ask him something." "Like what?" He smiled shyly. "You'll see." Outside, 2 black SUVs pulled up without sirens or cameras. Donald Trump stepped out, pausing before entering. "This isn't a campaign stop," he told the security team. "Stay back unless needed. This is about the kids." Dr. Helen Marks, the hospital director, greeted him in the hallway. The walls were painted with bright clouds and cartoon animals, the scent of antiseptic softened by bubblegum shampoo. "I'm here for one boy," he said quietly, "but I'll meet as many as I can." When the door to room 207 opened, Noah sat up straighter than he had in weeks. "Hello, young man," the president said, pulling a chair close to the bed. Noah's eyes widened. "You really came?" "I said I would." Danielle stood in the corner, wiping away tears. She hadn't seen her son this alive in days. The president gently took Noah's small hand. "What did you want to ask me?" Noah glanced at his 4-line, then back up. "It's not just for me," he said. "It's for all the kids here. We have a wish. But it's different." "Go on," the president said. "Promise you'll really listen." "I promise." Noah inhaled slowly. "We don't want toys or video calls with celebrities. We want something real." "What is it?" "A garden." The word hung in the air. "A garden?" the president repeated. Noah nodded. "A place outside, with trees and flowers. Somewhere we can feel the wind. Some of us might not ever leave this hospital, but we like to feel like we're still part of the world." Danielle covered her mouth. Dr. Mark spoke gently. "There used to be a courtyard. It was closed years ago. Funding, safety concerns." "Can we see it?" the president asked. The forgotten courtyard was overgrown, benches splintered, pavement cracked. Weeds pushed through what had once been careful stonework, but sunlight still reached it. The president rested a hand on a rusted swing. "We can fix this," he said. From a window above, Noah watched in his wheelchair beside Mia. "I can't promise miracles," the president called up to him, "but I promise this garden will bloom again." Noah's eyes filled. "Can I help design it?" "You're in charge," came a reply. The next morning, phone calls began. Architects, landscape designers, contractors, hospital administrators. "This isn't just landscaping," the president told them. "It's hope." He called Danielle personally. "Tell Noah to draw everything he imagines. We'll build it." Noah grabbed a sketch pad. His hands shook, but his ideas were clear. "A small fountain," he said. "Not big, just enough to hear water. And trees that turn red in the fall," Mia added. "And flowers that smell sweet when you walk past." Noah finished. Danielle watched as her son, pale but glowing, sketched life onto paper. Not everyone agreed at first. "Why spend so much on a garden?" a board member questioned. Dr. Marks answered firmly, "Because healing isn't just medicine. Sometimes it's sunlight." The first check arrived without ceremony. No red tape. The president instructed, "Just get it done." Construction began within days. Rain came, wind followed. Still, the workers stayed. Children pressed their hands to windows, cheering as bricks were laid and soil turned. Veterans mailed handcrafted benches. Schools sent drawings of butterflies and trees. A retired florist donated rare seeds. Word eventually reached the press. Headlines speculated motives. Some called it politics. Others called it kindness. But inside the hospital walls, none of that mattered. To Noah, it was something simpler. It was a place where children who felt trapped could feel the sun on their faces. It was a promise kept. And as the first green shoots pushed through fresh soil, something else began to grow too. A quiet reminder that even in the hardest places, life still finds a way to bloom. Offers of help poured in from across the country. Landscapers volunteered. Nurseries donated trees. Strangers mailed checks with handwritten notes tucked inside. But in room 207, time was slipping away. Noah was growing weaker. One evening, as dusk painted the sky outside his window, Mia looked at him carefully. "Are you scared?" Noah shook his head, though his voice was barely above a whisper. "No, I just want to see it finished." Danielle smoothed his blanket and kissed his forehead. "You will, baby. You have to." The doctors weren't so certain. The cancer was aggressive. They warned Danielle that he might not have another week. When Donald Trump heard the update, he didn't issue a statement. He didn't call a meeting. He simply returned. He walked quietly into Noah's room. The boy looked smaller now, his cheeks hollow, his breathing shallow. "We're almost there," Noah whispered. "I know," the president replied, pulling his chair close. "Can I see it?" Noah asked. There was a pause, not of doubt, but of calculation. "Yes," he said firmly. "Tomorrow." That night, the courtyard blazed with floodlights. Crews worked without stopping. Bricklayers, gardeners, volunteers. Even members of the Secret Service rolled up their sleeves, pushing wheelbarrows, sweeping stone paths, planting the final rows of lavender. They had never met the boy, but they worked like they knew him. By dawn, it was ready. The next morning, wrapped in blankets and surrounded by nurses, Noah was wheeled outside. Danielle held his hand tightly. Mia walked on his other side, clutching their original drawing. The sun had just begun to rise. Golden light filtered through newly planted maple trees. The air carried the scent of lavender and fresh earth. Noah's eyes widened. "It's real," he breathed. Sunflowers stood tall like bright sentries. A winding path of flowers curved gently through the courtyard. The small fountain trickled softly. Its sound like a lullaby. Butterflies already danced from bloom to bloom. Mia held up the sketch. "It looks just like you imagined." Near the entrance, Donald Trump stood quietly, hands folded in front of him. Noah looked at him and smiled, a full, peaceful smile. "You kept your promise." The president nodded once. "You kept me honest." At the gate stood a simple plaque, "Noah's garden where hope grows." Noah reached out with trembling fingers and touched the engraved letters. "I'm not afraid anymore," he said. 3 days later, Noah passed away peacefully in his sleep. Danielle was holding his hand. Mia had fallen asleep in the chair beside him. His final words were soft but clear. "Tell the garden thank you." When the call came, the president sat in silence for a long time. Then he asked if he could attend the funeral quietly. Danielle agreed. He would have wanted you there. At the small service, there were no cameras, no motorcade spectacle. He stood at the back like any other mourner, not as a president, but as a man saying goodbye to a boy who had changed him. After the burial, he walked alone to the garden. The breeze stirred the trees Noah had once drawn in pencil. The fountain murmured gently. He sat on a wooden bench and whispered, "Rest easy, Noah. You gave more than you ever knew." The story spread nationwide. But it wasn't the headlines that moved people. It was the heart behind them. Hospitals across the country began transforming empty rooftops and forgotten courtyards into gardens. Many named them after children who had inspired staff and families. Noah's original drawing was framed and displayed in the White House. Danielle began receiving letters from strangers. "Your son made my daughter smile again. Noah taught me what bravery looks like." Mia, whose own health slowly improved, became the first junior ambassador of Hope Gardens, a nonprofit funded in Noah's name to create healing spaces for children facing serious illness. And something else changed. Donald Trump began visiting more children's hospitals. Quietly, without press coverage, without speeches. He would sit by bedsides, listen, and leave with promises he intended to keep. Grief still lived in Danielle's heart. But one morning, as she stood in Noah's garden watching another child sketch flowers into a notebook, she felt something shift. She applied for a position at the hospital as a family counselor. "I can't bring Noah back," she told Dr. Marks, "but I can walk with other moms through the same fire." Dr. Marks embraced her. He'd be proud. When the president heard, he called her personally. "Noah isn't just a name on a plaque," he said gently. "He's part of something bigger now." Danielle smiled through tears. He always was. The world just finally saw it. Inspired by the story, a donor in Texas funded a similar garden at a children's hospital in Dallas. A retired Army veteran in Montana transformed his backyard into a sanctuary for terminally ill kids. Third graders in Ohio raised money selling lemonade to buy soil and seeds for a pediatric courtyard. What began as one boy's wish became a movement. But at the center of it all, Mia still visited the original garden every week. She would sit by the fountain and whisper, "You were right. The flowers really do make us feel better." 1 year later, at the National Pediatric Healthcare Summit, Donald Trump stepped to the podium. Cameras waited. The room was filled with doctors, administrators, advocates. He pulled a folded letter from his suit pocket. Noah's letter. "Sometimes," he began, "a child writes you something that changes your life." He didn't speak as a politician that day. He spoke as someone who had been humbled. "The greatest leaders," he said softly, "aren't always the loudest. Sometimes they're a 10-year-old boy who just wants to smell flowers before he dies." When he stepped away from the podium, the room remained silent, not because no one was moved, but because some moments are too sacred for applause. Back at Starlight Children's Hospital, the garden continued to grow. Mia, stronger now, her laughter louder, her step steady, helped plan a new section called Noah's Friends. It featured framed drawings from dozens of children who had passed through the hospital's halls. Each picture told a story of courage in crayon and watercolor. One bench bore Mia's own name. She had beaten her illness. "Because he gave me strength," she would say whenever someone asked. Danielle, too, had found new purpose. Now a full-time grief counselor, she sat with families in their darkest hours. Again and again, parents told her, "You understand without us having to explain." Noah's legacy wasn't rooted only in soil and stone. It lived in people. Children began leaving letters in a small white mailbox at the edge of the garden. On the front, written in careful paint, "To Noah." Some notes were lighthearted. Others carried the weight only children facing hospitals can know. Asterisk, "Dear Noah, I had my first surgery. I was scared, but I thought of you. Asterisk. Asterisk, hi Noah. My little brother is here now. Can you watch over him? Asterisk. Once a month, Danielle gathered the letters and placed them in a keepsake box. Donald Trump asked if he could read a few. One note stayed tucked inside his desk drawer. Asterisk, "Dear Noah, you made the president listen. That makes you the coolest kid ever." Asterisk. On what would have been Noah's 11th birthday, the president returned quietly to the garden. No press, no announcements, just balloons, a single cupcake, and 3 people who loved the boy they missed. Danielle and Mia waited near the fountain. They sang softly before releasing the balloons into the open sky. "Happy birthday, Captain Courage," Mia whispered. The president looked at Danielle. "He made me better." She nodded, eyes shining. "He made all of us better." At 10 years old, Mia helped Danielle and Dr. Marks create a book titled Noah's Garden. It was filled with children's drawings, poems, photographs of the courtyard's transformation, and stories about healing in unexpected places. The foreword was written by Donald Trump. "This book isn't about politics," he wrote. "It's about a boy who reminded us that real strength is quiet, and real change begins with listening." The book found its way into pediatric wings across the country. Soon after, a new addition appeared in the garden, a marble bench carved in the shape of a butterfly. Inscribed were Noah's words. Asterisk, we don't want toys. We want something real. Asterisk. Parents sat there during long nights. Siblings cried there. Nurses paused there between exhausting shifts. Even the staff admitted the garden healed them. 2 years passed. Long after his presidency had ended, Donald Trump returned once more. Older now, his hair grayer. He sat alone on the butterfly bench. Danielle spotted him and joined quietly. "Noah's still here, you know," she said. He nodded. "I feel him." "I never properly thanked you," she added. He looked at her gently. "You don't have to. He changed me. That's thanks enough." They sat together in silence as wind moved softly through the trees. Noah once drew with trembling hands. At 18, Mia stood at the National Pediatric Conference, a small pin with Noah's initials fastened to her jacket. "I'm not here just as a survivor," she told the audience. "I'm here as a friend. Noah taught me that our stories don't end when we're gone. They bloom in others." She announced her plans to become a child life therapist, to walk beside children the way Noah had walked beside her. Applause filled the room. Danielle, seated in the front row, wiped tears from her cheeks. Watching from home, the former president rose to his feet and clapped quietly. Children came and went. Seasons turned. The maple trees flamed red each autumn, just as Noah had imagined. But the garden never stopped blooming. It was never only about flowers. It was about a voice that refused to be small, a reminder that even the youngest among us can move the world. Every child who passed through its gates found something there: peace, beauty, courage. And at the center of it all, a boy's simple wish still echoed on the breeze. Asterisk, we don't want toys. We want something real. Asterisk. Because one man chose to listen, something beautiful took root, and it has never stopped growing.